More importantly, Gdańsk alone in Daniel's prize cards.
Oh, I don't love that for either player. That really does stunt the progress of this game.
Exactly, it's going to be so important because, as I could see, it's on the top of the prize cards there, perhaps.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
That's going to be an issue coming in. Not really, you know, hurtful prize cards. Of course, we do see the Turbo Energize there, but equally, Gdańsk alone being out there, that's probably even more important.
It's really troublesome. Now, maybe Daniel will be able to get into that cancelling cologne at some point, but right now, it is stuck in those prize cards. And so the early game pressure that Daniel otherwise might have been able to put on by turning that really potent ability off with Iron Thorns EX is not going to be coming around so soon.
And it looks like we are almost ready to start, and we are underway. We got the green flag for the top 8. Let's get some excitement in, and we are off.
And just as for you viewers, just for a bit of an explanation there about the prize cards, there was just a bit of a wobbly hand there with the prize cards, and the judge just wanted to make sure that they were fully randomized well. So the judge picked them up, gave them a shuffle, and popped them back down just to make sure that they were just as they should be.
And we do like our randomness, even though that shuffle came in, it did not help the placing of the Gdańsk alone. Still being the middle, there's not going to be the first couple of prizes that presumably Daniel's going to take, so it's going to be a bit difficult for him.
It is indeed. So let's have a look at exactly what we've got going on here. The first deck check can often be crucial, especially when it's down to the wire like this. We are in the top 8, everybody, and it is a win or you're outie at this point. We need a win to progress through the tournament. Daniel's going to be making a real harsh note of what he believes there to be in the prize cards at this stage.
And I reckon there's going to be a real harsh note of that. Canceling Cologne there cannot take the importance away from it. Of course, getting those 2 energies there, which are going to be really important. And of course, you're getting these attachments out, super important as well, but it's also depending on Steve. We said that the TM was prized, of course, the Energize. So it's going to be difficult, of course, getting these energy into play, but it's also, you know, can Daniel actually keep attaching these energy, actually get the attackers into discard pile? That's what we're going to have to see.
And here we go, just an attach pass, which is fine. As long as we are consistently attaching energy in these early stages, then that is fine for Daniel. It's, of course, not optimal, but that's all we can do when Iron Thorns is stood in the way, turning off the abilities of your Rulebox Pokemon. So Muse Restart is very ineffective. Here we go into an Energy Lotto, grabbing, a double turbo energy, perfect.
And he hits the lottery with that DTE, and of course, getting in there, getting the attachments on, and he gets the, he gets to even search for even more Iron Thorns, so he can fill up that board with those Thorns and make sure that he's set up for game.
And an, discarding the Arven, with the, oh my goodness. Yeah, we really are going. We are gaming. This is going to be quite the board state. Just really solidifying these Iron Thorns, saying to Daniel, look, I know that you can KO me at some point, but I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to lose this game by having no Pokemon on the board.
Exactly. It's a very important win condition. Of course, we can win by either taking all the 6 prizes or leaving our opponent with no Pokemon on the board or deck out. Of course, usually we see the 6 prizes being taken. That's all the win conditions we had on stream this weekend, of course. But we do still have to remember these other kinds of winning ways.
Yeah, really important, especially in, you know, the thick of it like this. The players have had really long days at this point, and we are getting to the exhaustion zone.
Oh, yes. And when speaking of time and stuff like that, of course, in the top 8 and in the top cut in general, if we had asymmetrical top cut, we have 75 minutes. So this means that we're not going to have any, you know, Game 2's being cut short, perhaps.
No,
we
absolutely.
do get actually more time to play these out and get to see everything come into full fruition.
It's a 75-minute long party over here with Iron Thorns and Regidrago going. They're having a great time, but we won't see much tail dancing at that party.
Unfortunately, not unless the Daniel can find that Cologne, but so far it seems to be smelly out in the prize cards.
It does, it really is. It's not helping at all, sadly. We've got the double turbo energy attached. Now remember that Haxorus could come in handy later, but it all relies on getting all set up.
Exactly. We can see Steve playing this Arvin here, there's going to be a Crushing Hammer fan to the top. We know what he's going to try. He wants to get rid of those energies straight away.
Oh, tell you what. Okay, Jesper, we need another counter. Are you ready? We need the amount of heads hit by hammers. Are you ready? We're going to do it over the best of 3. We're going to see how many hammer lucky heads we get.
Over all 3 games?
Over all 3 games.
Full set?
Yeah, full set.
I'm going to say 8 heads.
You think 8 heads?
I believe.
I'm going to go 6.
Got it.
I still think that's pretty good. Here's the first one.
Heads! Get in.
And that just slows Daniel down even more. So although Daniel's going to be trying to keep up, he might not be able to get as much energy on as hoped.
No, and exactly what Steve wants to. You know, this Iron Force deck just wants to stop the whole progress of your opponent's deck, and we see it absolutely getting in here. Attachment and Crushing Hammer heads. What a way to start off.
Okay, I love this. Yep, evolve the Regidrago V-Star. Make sure that we're keeping that HP as high as possible because we really don't want to fall prey to an Iron Thorns too early. Keeping it on the bench. Mew has free retreat, but that's fine. We just want to keep the Regidrago safe.
Exactly, because we don't want to get the Regidrago damage until it's ready to actually attack and do something. Of course, so we do see the Professor's Research not discarding any attackers, unfortunately.
No, that's so disappointing. It's absolutely what Research is in the deck for. We want to be able to discard our up to 7 cards in our hand or so at the start of the game and make sure that we're discarding Pokemon along with that. But not a shabby looking hand now for attacking Pokemon. But I'm not sure there's a way to discard them, yes.
Yeah, we do need some discarding cards to make sure, but you know, with Steve actually having this double turbo energy on the Iron Thorns, the Haxorus might be making a cameo appearance here, depending on if the Regidrago V-Star can actually stick the energy onto itself.
If the energy can stick, then we're good. If not, this could be a really bizarre game of, oh, you don't have any energy? Okay, then.
I'm just going to attack.
Just going to attack.
Exactly, and it's going to be exactly like that. And we see the Prime Catcher aggression coming from Iron Thorns. Not usually what we see from Iron Thorns having the aggression there.
But
moving
honestly,
up the future energy booster energy capsule up into the active.
It's always a mouthful, that one, isn't it?
Exactly is. It is just such a tongue twister.
It really is. Both of the energy capsules are a massive tongue twister. You guys have to feel sorry for us. We got to say the whole name multiple times per game, but the Future Booster energy capsule does give this Iron Thorns free retreat, so we can go back into the Iron Thorns with the energy now.
And another hammer.
Attack. Oh, here we go.
On.
Hammer number 2.
And what do we see? We see Tails. Okay. That's still good for you because you need those 6.
I do. I need that 6, so I'm not that upset. But this is still around. Another one. What's going on?
We get to see full domination of the hits. Oh, no. Hats on the third hammer. So you see here, Steve can actually come in, attack for 120, of course, set down by double turbo. But he gets attack turn 2 onto the Regidrago V-Star, and as we saw yesterday, not item lock though, but that Regidrago V-Star has free retreat cost, so it's going to be hard to get that out of there.
It's crazy, honestly. When you think about how much damage this is dealing, actually the Regidrago isn't going to stick around long, especially if it doesn't have energy to make any meaningful return attacks.
Exactly. The only way to take out Regidrago V-Star in 2 hits, of course, is if you're attacking without the double turbo energy.
Yes.
In this instance, that happens. So, of course, it's going to take free attacks to do so. But I don't think Steve minds, actually, because
no, not at all.
There's no energy in play.
No, those hammers did their jobs. And so Steve's like, oh, okay, cool, that's great. But if we did get that early turbo energized, that's when you can two-shot a Regidrago V-Star. So the outplay potential here is crazy, but it can be reliant on those coin flips.
And we've seen that multiple times, especially it seems like we two are hitting the coin flip matchups here, and it seems like it's falling home to us. And exactly as we're seeing Daniel think about what ways is he actually going to go in this matchup, of course, since it's really difficult for this position. None of your energy sticks, and he's going to go get the Squawk ability because it can motivate some energies on.
Oh, I like that. Motivate. A lesser used attack by Squawk ability, but it's actually very good. You can motivate for 20 damage, and it will attach 2 basic energy from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon.
Exactly, and getting those energy into play, as we said, that's the name of the game here. Getting a secondary Regidrago V, because of course Daniel doesn't want to have a Regidrago V-Star with energies on it that is damaged already. So Daniel's going to try and make sure that he gets a second Regidrago V-Star into play. That's going to be his primary attacker.
And absolutely using Squawkabilly is not a bad way to do it. So we're going to go ahead and switch into that. Squawkabilly only needs 1 energy, so we're not afraid of any hammer action here. And we're going to motivate those energy back into play, but this time on the not damaged Regidrago V.
And exactly, motivation for the team here as Regidrago gets some energy and gets hyped up and ready to go. Of course, still needs the evolution into the V-Star. But we see here Steve coming along. It's going to be pretty easy to get the knockout this turn. All he needs is a double turbo. Of course, Squawkabilly has that weakness to lightning, which is going to go straight into that knockout. But the question is also, what else?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So you're getting the KO on Squawkabilly, but still looking at our prize map. If this Regidrago V could evolve and then attack, finally Daniel can make some meaningful attacks and start really becoming quite a pest to Steve's game plan.
Exactly. We do see the Pokegear 3.0 here trying to fetch Steve some supporters and therefore also options in the deck. So we've got to look at the top 7, get a supporter card.
Who do we want to see?
We're seeing Arvin's, that's for sure.
I mean, Arvin's not a bad choice here. Maybe we're thinking about a boss just like for the future turns. But at the moment, I feel like Arvin is not a bad card to have. I'm not really sure what Steve's going for, other than really kind of needing to get more energy on the board because of the secondary effect of Iron Thorn's attack there, where you have to move an energy onto a bench Pokemon every single time it attacks. So you want to be looping those energies.
Exactly. So he has to make sure, meanwhile, keeping this attacking roll going, that he still gets into the energies every single turn. His hand didn't look as strong, so maybe also something like a Professor's Research could be nice to just fill up that hand again, give him some new options of supporter cards. As you mentioned yourself, Boss, there could also be, you know, Judges and Ionos getting in there to try and disrupt Daniel towards getting into that Regidrago V-Star. Because the most important thing for Steve right now is to make sure that that Regidrago V-Star is not going to be attacked while it's fully HP.
Exactly, and that's really the key here. Now, okay, look, we're eyeing up the 4th hammer already, but also for that future booster energy capsule, which is going to give this Iron Thorns free retreat, which again is essential for pivoting those Iron Thorns while they are having to move their energy around. So you can move the energy and the Iron Thorns around together and make this really harmonious cycle of Pokemon and energy.
Exactly. The future is here, and we might just in the future see a Crushing Hammer, and that's going to be really important because if Steve gets to remove this energy off the Regidrago, he also gets to remove the Squawkabilly, and here we go.
Here we go. One more time for the...
And that's no, it's a Tails. That would have been so important as we talk about again. Flips.
But this might give Daniel just the ounce of time he needs to make a huge comeback as we see this Squawkabilly get knocked out.
But it did its job. Squawkabilly did its job.
1000%.
Such a good bird. I mean,
Very well
we've been
done.
talking about birds all weekend, but here, this is not a good boy. He's doing a very good job here, getting those energy into play. Mew, of course, being this pivot Pokemon in this case with no retreat, getting in there and getting into the action and making sure that if Daniel draws energy from Regidrago V-Star, they're ready to attack.
These are both Pokemon that I've made arguments for this weekend, and Squawkabilly has shown that it's not just a draw engine, that it does help with its motivation for the team as well. And of course, Mew being used there as a free retreater, so we can pivot really nicely into this Regidrago V-Star, ready for a big attack. But what's in the discard pile?
You know what's going to roll? That's going to be the Iron, it seems. He points with the Rolling Iron and does 200 damage. And as we were talking about, it looks like next turn is only going to be 40 damage coming for this Iron Thorns.
That's not what we want. But if this Rolling Iron can keep on rolling through these Iron Thorns, that could be the make or break. And that's the beautiful diversity of Regidrago, is that, again, you know, cleverly predicted, Daniel's thought to himself, okay, well, I need to change a few of the Dragon-type attackers in my deck. I'm going to bring Goodra and Haxorus, and I think that's what this weekend is going to need.
Exactly. Of course, the Haxorus being dual purpose, right? Also being good in this Iron Thorns matchup to be able to take him out in one hit. But, of course, main enemy, Lugia in that case, of course. So...
And Terapagos.
Exactly, multi-purpose,
So
and that's what we
good.
want the cards on our list to be. Of course, Steve in the attachment on here to Iron Thorns, gotta, you know, solidify his position, or try to at least, bossing up that Regidrago V-Star to be able to hunt the prizes.
Oh, really putting on the pressure, going down to 2 prize cards by taking out this damaged Regidrago V-Star, although has no you know, it doesn't have any energy on, so it's okay. But going down to 2 prize cards
Not
feels
quite. He's going to be
sketchy.
20 damage away because of the double turbo energy. Because, of course, the future booster energy capsule is going to be 20 more. But because it's 100 and it's going to be 140 he does.
You're so right. I mismathed. I forgot the double turbo was on there. And that just goes to show how tough these matchups are. Now, the Regidrago is, of course, stuck in the active.
We do see a Haxorus being taken out there.
Here he
So
comes.
we might just get the fretful Hax getting in there and making sure that he can take some one-hit knockouts later.
He's going to be bringing down the axe and making sure that nothing with special energy is going to carry on attacking. Now, unfortunately, but also fortunately, Steve clearly had an inkling of this and actually chose to move the double turbo energy off this active Iron Thorns as the moved energy this turn.
And of course, these players have been playing throughout the whole tournament. They probably would have known something about each other's list. In this case, of course, Steve also have to play around this Haxorus getting these one-hit KOs. Of course, Steve has actually a pretty nice board. He has
Really
an Iron
nice.
Thorns without a booster energy capsule, but he doesn't need it there because it's fully charged. Of course, what Danny's looking for here is a way to switch out this active one.
Oh no, we've just had to pass the turn. It's Steve's go, and this could be the pacing that Steve needs to really take the advantage in this event.
Of course, because here, Steve's going to go down to 2 prizes, yeah? And then after this, all Steve would then need is 2 bosses orders on Dimiyu, for example, to be able to take that out for the last 2. So Steve's prize map is quite clear. Of course, take out this Regidrago V-Star, and then take out another 2 prize Pokemon.
Oh, is that? Well, that's TM Devolution, but we can't attach it because there's a future booster energy capsule on the active Iron Thorn, so we would have to retreat into one with a double turbo energy on, which doesn't feel fantastic.
It surely doesn't, and I do reckon, of course, it's good to play it, so you have the option after this incoming, perhaps, Professor Research. It does attach, maybe, perhaps, to the active, which actually makes quite good sense. So you can move down at Basic Lightning to have, you know, a clean Iron Thorns to attack with, so make sure the Haxorus is not going to bring the axe to that, and then we see Research for 7 new cards.
Absolutely. It's lovely when you can Professor's Research for 7 fresh cards, not having to discard anything. And I love this use of the basic lightning energy on the Iron Thorns to say, oh, it's okay, I actually don't need to reduce the damage on these later turns because we are building up the energy on the board, and Lost City makes an appearance.
And exactly, we get that Regidrago V-Star lost into the Lost Zone when we get the attack going on here. Whether that's TM Devolution or it's the Volt Cyclone doesn't truly matter. Both of them is going to take it out because, of course, the Regidrago V has 220 HP.
Absolutely. So it just depends whether you'd like to move energy around or not. That's the caveat. Well, are we going to want to move the energy before the possible impending doom of this Iron Thorns? But we've gone for TM Devolution.
Of course, the Regidrago V goes to the Lost Zone. The 2 Regidrago V stars go straight into hand. Of course, here we do see an option of Haxorus making it into play here and getting this knockout.
I wonder whether I'd have wanted to have kept my energy in play if that were the case if I'm Steve, but like being able to see that Haxorus right on the top there. But then again, there is so much energy in play already. Is it worth it just kind of getting out of play for the sake of, actually, I don't really need it. The deck can continue to thin. If I get disrupted, I suppose at least it's not. There's less in the way because I'm going to be playing more energy from my hand. So I think either way, we were on track.
As long as we're getting knockout there, we should be fine. Because here in this case, for the rest of the game for Steve, it sounds quite easy to do, but it is not as easy as said. But all he needs is just, you know, keep these attachments rolling, as well as getting into some boss's orders to make sure he gets these knockouts, of course. If he attacks with this Iron Thorns on a bench that has 2 lightning energies on it already, and a future booster energy capsule, and attaches another lightning energy, he does 160 to the Regidrago V-Star, unless he uses Rolling Iron, of course. Then we have to start bossing around twice to make sure we take those last 2 prizes.
And that really is a lot, but, you know, it's going to take a lot for Steve to get these prize cards because he does need to make a minimum of 2 clean attacks on one of these 2 prize wonders in Daniel's board state right now, either on the Mew EX or the Regidrago. But regardless, Daniel's going to be trying to make it as difficult as possible to attack the same Pokemon twice, right?
Of course, and we cannot discard, you know, discount Daniel in this matchup. There's, of course, got to come some, you know, disruption from Daniel at some point with the Ionos to make sure that Steve doesn't get into this multiple boss situation. So there's going to be a lot of things that's going to happen throughout these next 2-3 turns that's going to be deciding the outcome of this match.
Okay. using some energy switches just to thin down what's in deck. Of course, Mew, a great attacker in and of itself with genome hacking. But this time we're choosing to go with Dragapult. Oh, nice to be able to do some damage on Steve's bench there. Of course, 60 damage on to the already damaged Iron Thorns. Oh, and there we are, the rest, of course.
That is such a perfect setup here because he
beautiful.
does 200 to the active, 50 to the other Iron Thorns while dealing 10 to the one with 220 on it already.
Crazy.
You know what that means?
What does that mean, Jesper?
Dragapult could clean up the game next turn.
Whoa, that's a really tough position to be in, being able to boss his orders and mop up the game in one fell swoop. And that's exactly what Dragapult's great at.
And that's why we've seen Dragapult so much this weekend. Whether being by itself or being used by this Regidrago V-Star, Dragapult definitely has been a force to be reckoned with these past few weeks.
It's even been seen being used alongside Iron Thorns, so Dragapult is in at least 3 decks right now. It is one of the strongest attackers in our format by far.
And it's like Dragapult is saying, not enough. We want to be in more decks, of course, with these 3 different variants of Dragapult. But it's so difficult for Steve here because Steve has to get this damage healed. And so far, as I can see, there's 1 switch card in deck. That's going to put this active Iron Thorns down to 170 damage, which still means that a boss from Daniel is going to mop it up because it does 60 on the bench, which is going to hit the perfect 230 damage.
Exactly the perfect amount of damage. So no matter what, Steve is kind of looking down the barrel at Dragapult right now and thinking, oh dear, we're going to have to change things up quite considerably. And personally, I'm not certain Steve has the cards in deck to make that happen right now. I'm not sure there's enough recursion.
I mean, there's 1 switch card in deck that heals. There's 2 pennies, so he has to hit either of those because the switch card in by itself won't be enough.
No,
so
it won't.
It's also a question of, okay, if Steve doesn't hit the penny this turn, he has to sort of try and disrupt Daniel as much as possible. Daniel being at 4 prize cards, though, I don't know, wouldn't do as much as he wanted it to. Neither would Judge, of course, because both of them would be giving 4 cards to Daniel.
Regardless of Daniel not being able to use Restart or his V-Star power, it's really managed to put so much pressure on Steve. I'm thoroughly impressed, and it all came from that 4th hammer miss.
Exactly, that 4th hammer miss really, really brought Daniel back into the game and made sure that he could actually set up this Regidrago V-Star, which sorts to try and, you know, get back the rope of the game. And we're seeing such a close game right here. And, you know, if Steve has 2 ways of going it. He has to get Penny, he has to disrupt, or he has to try and boss the Mew and see if that could help out. And if Daniel misses the ball's definitely in Daniel's court right now.
Let's see how we go. Future Booster Energy Capsule, okay. I'm not sure. I mean, we've got another Pokegear. But I'm not certain the move that is going to be made here.
There's a quite smart move that Steve can actually make. He can retreat into the benched Iron Thorns. Switch carded, because then it's out of reach from Dragapult, and then get back into the already damaged Iron Thorns, because Steve has accepted. Next turn, there's going to be a 2-prize knockout. Fair enough. But we do have to switch card, and we already have a boss in hand, so we can actually start, you know, setting up some of this damage. Get the Thorns down to 20 with the switch card, of course, and that plays perfectly into what Steve wants.
That is absolutely ideal. That Future Booster Energy Capsule really pulling its weight, allowing for the free retreat cost of the Iron Thorns and taking the second Iron Thorns out of range of that Dragapult's attack.
It's going to go straight for the attack, and of course moving an energy away from the Thorns. I would maybe like to see the pause, because otherwise, if Daniel goes for Rolling Iron, that actually could spell really big trouble for Steve here.
It could. But we'll just have to see whether the ferocity of Steve's deck will come through. Running a lot of bosses orders themselves, sometimes we can get around that blockade of Gudra. But, ooh, Temple of Sinnoh.
That's going to come into the way of the DT, yes.
Yeah, making that double turbo energy less effective. And then if maybe we see a Prime Catcher and actually try to target the damaged Iron Thorns, but we can't take it out with Haxorus.
We actually still can, because Haxorus' other attack, Dragon Pulse, is actually live. And you see, Daniel has pointed out here, he has what looks like 5 cards left in deck.
That's just
so
enough.
He can still survive using the attack.
That's bad. Dragon Pulse does 230 plus discarding the top 3 cards of your own deck. So Daniel could just about stay in this game.
Yeah, because Iron Force only has 230 HP.
That's absolutely perfect.
And we do see the Rolling Iron here from the Gudra.
Oh, I loved that play, though. That was so smart. Very well observed by yourself, Jesper.
Exactly, because you see here, there's like, if Steve had gone for the Boss's Order last turn, we would have been sitting in this pickle here.
Yes.
Now we end up sitting with a situation where we don't do enough damage, and next turn we just get taken out by Hexorus no matter what.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing we can do about it.
No. Absolutely not. And that's the kind of situation that they've tried to stick one another in, is this constant back and forth of, oh, well, if I don't respond, it's like a chess game right now.
Oh, yes.
It's if I don't respond to what you've just done, I can't just sit here and play my own game.
Oh, yeah.
I can't not respect your game plan because it's so damaging to my own kind of stance in this game right now, and I'm not sure there's much Steve can do to respond to that Gudra's Rolling Iron now.
No, not really. I don't see any really thing here, but I've been caught off guard before, so it's not going to be a first time. We do see Steve perhaps try with the Iono getting in here, but really I don't see any options getting back here because the Haxorus is just going to come in and sweep it.
Yeah, exactly. Good old Haxorus bringing down the axe and Dragon Pulsing to victory, possibly. And that's the concern, is that actually this is such a strong dragon type that we haven't seen much in this meta until now.
Exactly. It's because the Retro Draco V-Star players have been favoring other options like Noctowl in the past, of course. But, you know, really good to look at in Daniel Magda's list. There's no stuff like, you know, there's Cleffa, there's no Fessendipity. The Czech players have actually been liking not to play Fessendipity here in the past few weeks, favoring some more consistency and some more options in some stands, right? They've been favoring, you know, getting to play Haxorus because it's a more economical attacker when we're thinking about that versus Giratina V-Star, which also, you know, hits 230 or above.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right in saying that. And Fessendipity also feels like such a bit of a liability in this format as well. There are a lot of Pokemon that can take it out, and I think that shows...
We're almost there, yeah. He tried to penny it back up to concede, but we see... So Daniel's just going to draw for turn. I think he does have it here. I'm pretty sure there was a Haxorus or an attacker that could do nothing. There's a Haxorus, and we get the Dragon Pulse.
Oh my goodness, the Dragon Pulse, discarding 3 cards, but it matters not as we have managed to take that big final KO, leaving Steve with no Pokemon in play.
Exactly, in such a back and forth game. We were thinking so far that Steve had the ball in his court, but then Daniel suddenly started to climb back a little bit and really show, you know, why these young minds are at work.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you some fun facts right here. Steve and Daniel both played these decks against sort of other players and both won their matchups.
And we can definitely see that there's probably a trick up Daniel's sleeve, right? It has to be the Haxorus.
It must be the Haxorus. And unfortunately, we did see that really important coin flip fail on that crushing hammer. And then the Dragapult and Gudra barrage took down Steve's Pokemon one by one very meticulously. Steve did everything in his power to try and prevent it with that really clever switch card to give this Iron Thorns the best chance at survival. But sadly, Haxorus came a-swinging.
And he brought down the axe. Not quite, he did Dragon Pulse it through, but we didn't see him bring down the axe here. Like, Daniel tried to not be as aggressive here as he could have, because he still wants to keep these Regidrago V-Stars staying on the board and alive, because it's super hard for him to charge up multiple Regidrago V-Stars.
Yes.
So that's why he wants to make it a little bit more bulky with the Rolling Iron and making sure they stay there.
I love the inclusion of Gudra back into these decks. Long forgotten, but not a card to be messed with. We still need to remember that Gudra's around, and with these Pokemon that do have limited attack power, although they have really strong abilities, Gudra can just kind of make your own Pokemon so bulky.
And we'd seen it bulk with Gudra itself in the past, right?
Absolutely.
Using that Moisture Star on top as well. And
so good.
We don't have Moisture Star now, but it's still showing why it's so good.
It is, and sadly we won't be seeing much of those V-Star really powerful abilities that come through sometimes, as Iron Thorns sadly shuts that down.
That's
so mulligan number 1, here we go. 1 mulligan in game 2. Let's see how many we're going to get this time.
How many, Amy?
I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with 5. Did I say 5 last time?
You said 3.
Did I say 3?
I said
no, you
5.
said 5. I'm sticking with 3. I'm sticking with my guns.
All right, I'll say the 5. I gotta hit my 5 points.
Okay, okay. Let's see how we go.
But again, we saw it, as we talked about, Crushing Hammer, such an important card.
Oh, yeah, and it really showed during that game because that 4th Crushing Hammer was make or break.
Oh, yes. I mean, if you get to flipping 50% on Hammer is quite good in of itself. That's the balanced number, right? But Steve needed to push it at 75%, and unfortunately didn't.
It quite frankly
That's 2.
didn't. Okay, okay, okay. I'm ready. I'm ready for 3. What are you going with? Are you sticking with your 5?
I'm sticking with my 5.
Okay, we're going to stick with it. We believe. We absolutely got rolled last time, so let's try
we
again.
Definitely got rolled. We definitely got rolled by the Gudred there and the extras in the combination afterwards. But let's see. We are 2. I mean, Steve got to give us some mulligans, right, to make sure that this progresses a bit. But, of course, some things here we can look at. The prize cards are already out for Daniel. There's no canceling clone out there, so we might be seeing some tricks with it.
Ooh, and Steve, although might have presumed that Daniel runs that canceling clone, didn't fall prey to it. That canceling clone would allow for our Regidrago's amazing V-Star ability and bring some cards back into play, but also Teal Dances.
Exactly. It could also bring that canceling clone again, so maybe Daniel could actually get 2 turns of using abilities, and that's gonna really bring it into Daniel's court, because then he of course gets 2 turns of Teal Dancing, 2 turns of Mew, 2 turns of just using perhaps, like, of course he has used his Regidrago V-Star to recover it in that case.
Much.
But you're also getting to recover cards on top of that.
Yeah, the value that is bringing is gigantic. I like that is exactly the kind of strategy we were hoping to see in game 1, but we'll thankfully hopefully get to see in game 2 here. Now I think we're ready for our next set of cards. Daniel's all set up, but we're still going.
The full 7 for Steve.
Here we go.
I hope he has kept a tracker over how many mulligans he's had. And we see it, Thorns. We lost again.
He's ever so good at getting these Iron Thorns. Why?
That has to be reached these guns so far, right? If you keep giving your opponents so many mulligans, that's not great. But we do see 2 Bowser Swords and Brandcatcher in the prizes for Steve, though.
And Giovanni's Charisma, which we didn't get to see, but again is one of those cards that really helps not only you accelerate your energy, but it prevents your opponent from getting set up. So again, it kind of acts like a little bit like a Crushing Hammer in that sense. Giovanni's
Charisma.
Top
deck here. We do see the energy getting to Steve's hand, because if he didn't top deck the energy, there would be no attachment this turn. So if Steve can get into a double turbo next turn, he's already attacking.
Ooh, okay, so we're already jet setting off with Steve. Let's see if Daniel can make progress even without, again, that Muse restart ability. But the free retreat absolutely helps us out here, so we're not to worry. Now, Steve played against Regidrago in day 1 and 1 against Kaiwen, and Daniel actually ended day 1 undefeated. He did play against 1 Iron Thorns and did win, so both of these players know how to play against each other's decks rather well.
Exactly, and it's also weird perhaps for Steve. He's used to winning against these Regidrago V-Star decks. And of course, he's maybe had a bit more fortune with the hammers in those cases. Of course, Kaiwen, a fantastic player. As we've said, there has to be some confidence in him coming from Australia, but Steve is making it so far.
Yep, he's been doing a fantastic job. And of course, like, on paper, you would think this is going to be really, really tough for Regidrago. But you know, Daniel's proving that it's not as scary as it needs to be, and winning even without the use of canceling Cologne. That just shows how much of a pro Daniel really is.
Exactly, and we're speaking of, you know, also getting these attachments, and Daniel did prize 3 energies though, 2 grass energies and a fire, so he's going to be struggling a little bit for those attachments. Of course, with the canceling clone being there, I would rather prize triple energy than a canceling clone, honestly.
Okie dokie, so we're going ahead, we're discarding our Prime Catcher and Energy Switch with our Ultra Ball there, just to get a Cleffa to guarantee some card draw.
That's really nice, because also in this matchup, Steve wants to run for a 2-2-2 prize trade, right? That Cleffa throws that off a bit, because of course Cleffa's a 1-prizer. So he's playing down his hand to make sure he gets the attachment for turn, but also gets to draw a full 7 with Grasping Draw.
I love that. Cleffa really coming into its own. This may be a small Pokemon, but sweet she is not, allowing your opponent to draw up to 7 cards in their hand. But as Daniel has completely emptied his hand, he'll be drawing a full 7, and hopefully that 7 will shine.
And of course, in the card art he's running in his deck, the moon's out, it's all dark because of all the everlasting darkness, but they do look at the moon and get the 7 cards.
Let's see if these 7 are the ones. Now, of course, obviously that is an attack, so it will be Steve's turn, but hopefully Daniel has a workable hand.
Of course, here, there is triple Crushing Hammer in Steve's hand.
Oh my word.
There's also research. So we might just have to play out these hammers and research to make sure we actually get a setup on board, which is going to hurt Steve so much not having all of the hammers.
Fail on hammer number 1. We do have 2 double turbo energy in hand as well, so we can get attacking, but here comes second hammer.
No.
Fail, no! Maybe he's going to have to play all 3 just to remove this 1 grass-type energy from this Regidrago V on the bench. Is he going to go for it, or is he going to take his time?
Oh, he's pondering
going to go for it.
And he's going for it.
Okay, let's see. Ready?
Come on, Steve.
We
believe.
Steve, we believe.
No, triple tails.
Triple tails. Yes, but why? This is not what the hammers are supposed to do. 3 out of 4 being tails in this round. Oh my gosh, top 8 and flipping 3 tails on your second turn is not what we want to see.
That's not what we want to see. We've seen Worlds Finals being lost on triple tails from Jirachi's Wishing Star back in the day, but here we don't have any Wishing Star. No. There's no luck in these hammers, unfortunately, but at least Steve gets into the double turbo energy off the research and can still attack. Even though the Volt Cyclone wouldn't transfer energy, there's still going to be knockout taken here, and Steve trying to get into more resources here and trying to get into either, it looks like he's going to be getting either Pokegear or Arven for the prize, which is going to help further the setup.
Here we go. Okay. Regardless of the slightly frustrating prize race Steve's now forced into, the Clever is still worth the knockout. We still need to get that out of play, stop Daniel from just being able to grasping draw over and over. Clever, again, being a really great pivot Pokemon because it doesn't have a retreat cost, so you can put it back to the bench without using any energy up.
Exactly. Now that we do have another favorite trader in Miyu, of course, getting these energy into play is the name of the game for Daniel still. And it's going to be much show just like Game 1.
Absolutely. And we've managed to keep that grass energy on.
Oh, yeah.
Unlike Game 1, this grass energy is sticking around. It's looking good for Daniel. We're thinking about the way that Daniel managed to win without canceling Cologne, with more of those hammers really taking effect, with 2 really early crushing hammers going ahead and getting that heads. And now for an Iono to disrupt, what can't Daniel do?
It seems like it's just Steve's definitely making the job easier on Daniel. Of course, not removing these energy. And this Regidrago V has not been damaged yet. So it's going to be super difficult if Daniel can get into the Gudra, into the discard pile, and get into these attacks to just, you know, make it unbearable for Steve to get through. You're
so right. Energy is only a part of the puzzle. We also need Dragon-type Pokemon in the discard pile. And we need that Regidrago V-Star. I mean, Dragon Laser's not a bad attack in this matchup, but the 220 HP is a little volatile, being a definite 2-hit KO from the Iron Thorns, regardless of double turbo energy.
But there is a way for Daniel to win the game on this turn or next turn. Keep in mind, Steve only has 1 Pokemon in play.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
If Daniel hits Regidrago V-Star and a canceling Cologne and gets into either Haxorus or Giratina V-Star, we might just be over already.
Oh, don't. Jesper. Could you imagine? It could well happen, but how is Daniel going to draw any more cards? I'm just doubtful of whether we can actually get into that canceling Cologne from this stage.
That is the question, but that does still put a lot of pressure onto Steve because, like, he needs to get additional Iron Forms rolling out there. And if he can, that's going to be a very real chance next turn.
So over to Steve's turn. Steve sticks it out with this Iron Thorn.
Oh, there's an Iron Thorn. It's okay. We are still alive regardless.
Gaming. We are gaming.
Oh, yes, we are. We see the energy lotto. Let's see if he hits a lottery again. Of course, super important he got that Iron Form. So we want to see some more action.
Oh, yeah. We need to keep that energy flowing. And yes, of course, there was plentiful energy, but no special energy in hand. So we're going to go for a basic lightning energy. Not bad at all. But we're going to need more of the puzzle pieces. We need to be able to retreat to keep this flow of energy and Pokemon online.
Exactly. And now we do see the energy heading in here. Of course, there's going to be either an attachment to active or bench. Really would love the attachment to the bench here. And then we can also get to move the lightning energy from the active. There's 7 lightning and 4 double turbos, so it means that you're more likely draw into these lightnings, which makes it easier for you to string these attacks together.
It's also really poignant to note that using the double turbo energy as the item to go, or the energy card, sorry, to go onto the Iron Thorns on the bench, you protect the active from the likes of Haxorus's first attack, which is quite nice, just to get that peace of mind.
Exactly. We do want to keep our Iron Thorns as safe as possible because we want to make sure they're not one-hit KO'd by something like the Haxorus or the Giratina V-Stars, so make sure we can get to use Penny, for example, to make sure we get to remove these damage counters and get us in as many attacks as we can before our Iron Thorns falls.
Absolutely, but let's see if we can keep building this board. It's coming along really nicely. We did get the Future Booster Energy Capsule. We did get another Iron Thorns, so it looks like Steve is creating that really strong board state once again.
Exactly. It's also great he gets to, you know, disrupt with the judge as well, which is going to be super important because it's going to ask all the questions to Daniel, force him to have the answers in this matchup, which is what has been, you know, the story of this matchup. Does Daniel have the answers?
And that's the thing, with a 4-card hand, it feels unlikely, right? Much, much, much more so in comparison to Daniel's previous very plentiful hand, thanks to Cleffa.
Exactly. Now,
ooh, that does look like quite a nice hand for Daniel. I'm not going to lie to you, Jesper. I think we've got an Ultra Ball, Gudra, an Energy, and an Iono.
Oh, wow. He gets the supporter and the Ultra Ball to discard the Gudra, which is the main attacker in this matchup aside the Haxorus, of course. Now, we do see the Palpite getting back the boss's orders. Steve knowing there's 2 boss prizes, of course. We need to get that back.
Yeah, and I mean, with the Prime Catcher as well, you kind of have effectively 3 boss's orders prized. It feels bad.
Yeah, definitely so. And not even with the Palpite being able to recover 2 boss's orders like you normally would to actually have more boss's orders at your availability. But here we see the attack from Iron Thorns, putting 140 damage onto Mew, removing the double turbo to make sure Haxorus is not going to bring down the axe.
And keeping that energy in play. So ever so important to make sure that we're maneuvering the most high value energy to get
research from the top deck.
Oh, that's lovely. Attach the grass energy for turn. We've got enough energy on Regidrago now. Mew can retreat for free. We need the V-Star.
Do we have it?
I don't think we
don't
do.
think I see it. Is there an Ultra Ball in there? He's asking for a Disco Pal just to check what he's got.
I can't. Okay, there's
there might be a stretcher,
is there a nice stretcher? No, there isn't.
There's a stretcher!
Oh my goodness. Okay, now we're rocking and rolling. Steve is set up. Daniel is set up. Now it is a battle of wits.
Now we got a game.
Whoa, here we go. Rolling iron, baby. First one, reducing Daniel's damage by 80 next turn. So Iron Thorns won't be able to do quite as much damage because it will be minus 80 off that already quite low number of 140, and even less so if double turbo is the energy of choice.
You are exactly right here, Amy, because here with the 200 damage being put on, it also builds it up for Dragon Bolt, right? So all of these attackers are stringing together because Steve is almost, if he doesn't get the DT here, forced to retreat it, right? If he's forced to retreat it, it means that the Dragon Bolt can go ahead and set up, or they can be set up further next turn by a Gudra, because if there isn't healed then afterwards, you know what can happen? A Dragon Ball can take 6 prizes if set up correctly.
I love that. I love that so much. I love that all these dragons are stringing together their attacks to perfectly knock out these opponents. It is absolutely bonkers because we're getting to the stage where Gudra is great in the early game. And then, of course, we have Dragapult coming in and just mopping up. It's absolute poetry in motion. Love to see all of these dragon Pokemon in the same deck working so harmoniously in a matchup that on paper seems unfavored.
Exactly. It does seem unfavored, especially for what these players have been playing it through, but we just see Daniel maneuvering masterfully. And I mean, it also dependency, right? There's a difference between a lot of these Regidrago V-Star lists, whether or not they're playing the Gudra, but here in this case, it's paying off in spades.
Oh, massively. Once again, moving that really high value energy, knowing that we need the lightning energy on that benched Pokemon in case the Iron Thorns inactive takes a nasty turn.
And of course here, Daniel wants to be attaching multiple energies to this Regidrago V-Star, making sure that the last hammer not going to hit perhaps, but if it hits, that we're safe from it. Of course, the plan from Daniel here is to make sure that this Regidrago V-Star by itself is going to be able to take the full game through.
And it really could be exactly that. seeing this all the way through. And you're right, putting sort of more energy than you need, really going over that energy cost for the attack normally isn't worthwhile. But in this instance, we know that Steve runs Crushing Hammers, and we have one left, I believe.
Yes.
And then we have Giovanni's Charisma. And although it is prized, of course, Daniel doesn't know that, and so is making sure that Giovanni isn't there to put an energy attached to his active back into his hand.
There's also signs of a great player here, right? Daniel's always asking himself the question, how do I lose from here?
Yes.
And it's always the great thing about, trying to make sure that there's no way your opponent can surprise you and take the win there. We have seen this. This is like a question that all these great players ask themselves all the time to make sure that they can get into the win.
Exactly, and that's such a beautiful way of putting it. Just figuring out, how do I lose from here? That's such a fantastic question to ask yourself. I really love that insight.
Exactly, and you can get actually with all of these extra attachments on top of that, there's also the opportunity to just Giratina V-starring through, right? So that's why you can also attach these extra energies just to make sure that if you use Giratina V-star, you do have an opportunity to just keep attacking with it all the time.
Exactly, and that's exactly the kind of pressure that you need to put on decks like this.
So we do see here some energy being found with the Earthen Vessel. Of course, as we always talk about, keeping these energies flowing, super important for Daniel to do. And these energy attachments have been, of course, name of the game. Rolling Iron comes in, though.
Oh, here we go. We're looking towards that Dragon Ball attack even more and more and more. Steve's going to need some switch card action to get out of those perfect numbers, but I don't know if it's possible at this stage.
Just looks really tough at this point. And, of course, the Rolling Iron keeping this Retro Draco V-Star alive in the active position. And it's super important here because Steve could be forced to be attacking with the third Iron Force. That's all right, but still, it would be going up to 120, this Retro Draco V-Star in the active.
Absolutely.
The next turn, he can go Rolling Iron again. And if so, it would just end up being a mess.
Exactly, and that's exactly the power. But before the Iron Thorns comes down, is that going to be the difference?
It could very well be if Daniel does not hit any Gust option, any Boss's Orders, or any Prime Catcher later. Of course, he hasn't gone through a lot of Gust options yet, but depending here is also super important to make sure that we can't, Gust into these knockouts, perhaps.
Absolutely, or use those Dragapult numbers to mop up right at the end, with Daniel possibly looking at taking all 6 prize cards in one go. Penny could put a real thorn in that.
Exactly. Speaking of thorn, I mean, thorn in the side here for Daniel is still going to be that we haven't seen this cancel and clone combo turn yet.
Not at all.
Which is something we want to see, or maybe Daniel's keeping it a bit for later.
Maybe. I wouldn't mind that either. Digging for the last puzzle pieces, using your amazingly powerful Legacy Star, V-Star power ability, just unlocking that to go into your discard pile and piece together a winning turn. That's just beautiful. That in of itself is the showmanship that we see from players like Daniel.
Exactly. We do see the attachment onto Ogerpon. Ogerpon could also be very interesting because if this Reggie Draco V-Star falls, there's so much damage in play, and all of these Iron Thorns have multiple energies on them, which actually also fuels the Ogerpon itself.
Yeah, Grass-type power coming to the people. Maybe taking some knockouts. Let's see it, Ogerpon.
And we see the Dragon Ball 4 prizes this turn.
Oh.
And with the extra 30 that's left, can also set up for game-winning 200 damage attack next turn as well.
Ouch! That is gigantic. And again, it's going to make Steve really not want to promote that damaged Iron Thorns. A switch card could take that 30 damage away, but it's going to be slim pickings. Steve has a 1-card hand?
Exactly. With the 1-card hand, there's not many options. We're speaking of Hackstars throughout the game. We're speaking of Giratina V-Star. We might just have it finished this next turn, actually.
Here we go. Let's see what this top deck is. It's a make or break time.
Come on, Steve. Show us what you got. There's an Arven off the top.
Okay.
DT
Double
for
turbo.
All right, that's
oh, no.
fair. But
maybe that's not quite enough. What would Arven get us? Maybe switch cart and future boost to energy capsule, and then we can heal that 30 damage?
That can remove the 30 damage, but it doesn't take us out of the threat of Giratina V-Star or Hackstars.
No, you're right. Oh my gosh, we can just get one shot. We need to deal with this Regidrago V-Star.
But we can't do enough damage to do that. There's only 120 on, there's 160 HP left, and both of these Iron Thorns have double turbo energies on them, which means the maximum damage that could be done this turn is 140.
I think this is all Ogerpon now. And Ogerpon itself even has an energy for a retreat cost. We can't even boss stall, even if it was possible. But sadly, as we've noted, Prime Catcher is in the prize card.
And we do see Hackstars Haxorus in the discard pile, looming there, waiting to see if there's a chance. There might be a reason here to go for Crushing Hammer, see if you can flip heads and root the Fire Energy and hope that Daniel does not have additional Fire Energy to boot.
Oh my goodness, he's going to use every moment now just to assess whether this is the moment, whether it's a clean 2-0 or whether Steve has something up his sleeve to bring down this Regidrago V-Star. I'm not sure, but we have plenty of time, so in these moments it's always best to triple and quadruple Quad Thorns check.
Exactly. You want to make sure when you're sitting in these positions, you don't know next time you're going to be in the top 8 at a regional, if ever again, and you want to make sure you're doing your absolute best to make sure that you've done all of your work.
Absolutely. We've gone for the Future Booster Energy Capsule and a Crushing Hammer. Now, removing the Fire-type energy. Oh, but we've seen it in Daniel's hand. Daniel's showing off now.
Daniel's showing off, yeah, and that's what I said. Crushing Hammer could be removing the Fire Energy, but if Daniel has the Fire Energy, as he shows, then, yeah, I don't see any...
I didn't even spot that, Jesper. Look, I was looking at Steve,
I tried to keep your hopes up here, but with the Fire Energy being in there, this is going to be out of reach.
But Steve's giving us a good show. We get another Crushing Hammer. Oh.
He's been flipping terribly on those hammers.
All of them failed. And unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the game with just a little bit of damage there on our Regidrago V-Star. And soon, Daniel will be launching the Haxorus Assault with a huge knockout on Iron Thorns EX!
Exactly, and Daniel brings down the hammer on this Iron Thorns and advancing into the top 4.